What's up, everybody? I'm not going to say that. Hello, I'm Daniel, this is Chris, and you're watching The Superhero Show, a weekly roundup of all the best superhero news or anything we can just find on site, just scrape it together and repackage it.
Yep.
You have the first news story.
Casting news.
We love casting news.
We love casting news, and it's a big piece of casting news. We had our Fantastic Four a few weeks ago, and now we have our Doctor Doom.
Okay.
And again, they've gone young. Again, they've not gone with a household name. Toby Kebbell.
Who's Toby Kebbell?
Toby Kebbell is a brilliant British actor.
Another Brit.
He's made his way to Hollywood lately. He's been in a few blockbusters, if not great blockbusters. He was in Prince of Persia, Sands of Time. He was in The Sorcerer's Apprentice. He's got a couple of big ones coming up. Dawn on the Planet of the Apes. He plays one of the apes. He's done a performance capture performance. and Warcraft. He's in the World of Warcraft movie as well.
It's two big projects.
But if you want to see what he's really all about, I'd recommend his very first movie, which was Dead Man's Shoes, a Shane Meadows film.
Excellent movie.
Yeah, where he plays Paddy Considine's younger brother. And yeah, check it out. It's one of the best British films of the last 20 years. And his performance is really...
that film so much.
It's a very unusual performance. I won't say much more, but very powerful. He's also rock and roller. If you've seen the Guy Ritchie movie, Rock and Roller, he is the rock and roller in the film.
But only check them out if you're over 18.
Yeah. Is that one 18? That one might be 50.
No, Dead Man Shoes. Yeah, that's probably 50.
But he's very charismatic, and he can do kind of likeable, but he can also do nasty.
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, what do you think he has in his locker that would make him quite good for Doctor Who?
There's a darkness to Toby. He's quite... I've met him a few times, and he's a good fun lad, but there's a darkness behind his eyes. I think
it's fair to say we're still waiting for the iconic depiction of Doctor Doom on cinema.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say. Who's it? Julian McMahon, the bloke from Nip Tuck.
Yes,
didn't quite nail it.
Yeah.
So hopefully Toby will do the job.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm pleased about that one. I think this is good news for Fantastic Four.
Do you want some other exciting news, Chris?
I do.
This is big news.
What you got for me?
Brace yourself. They've announced who's going to direct the spin-off Spider-Man movie, which is the Sinister Six, focusing on 6 villains.
Okay, and shall I pretend I don't know who it is?
Yeah, pretend just for this bit.
Who is it?
I know. I can't believe you've not heard this. No. It's Drew Goddard.
Drew Goddard. Drew Goddard!
Yes, it's Drew Goddard. Drew Goddard is the director and co-writer of Cabin in the Woods.
Indeed.
Which I've actually found out recently, Cabin in the Woods is more divisive than I actually thought it was. I thought everyone who watched it loved it, but some people don't like it, but I think it's great.
I've got some hardcore... I mean, we consider ourselves hardcore horror fans, I think. But I've got other fans, some of my Fright Fest buddies, who found it like it was a bit of a slap in the face to horror fans and kind of almost...
I just found it more playful than anything.
I totally agree.
So... He's also worked back in the day on a lot of Buffy stuff, Angel, Lost. So he's been around. He's worked on things. He's worked with big ensemble casts, which maybe is a little tick in his favour. But I think Cabin in the Woods, telling a story from a kind of weird perspective, I think maybe stands him in good stead for the Sinister Six. Because unlike any other superhero film, you're going to have the focus and the perspective the other way round. And... it's going to be interesting to see how they manage that.
Yeah, so what do we know about Sinister Six at the moment?
So that's what we're going to talk about this episode, because I interviewed Avi Arad and Matt Tolmack, who are the producers of Amazing Spider-Man 2 earlier in the week. So we've got some stuff that they said we will play later on.
And you showed them a picture of you in a little Spider-Man outfit when you were a little kid?
You say little kid. It was on my 18th birthday. Insert picture now. And this is what I do every week now. I just show pictures of me as a kid.
They liked it, though, didn't they?
Yeah, they really liked it. Yeah. So when the inevitable reboot happens, I won't be considered. So the Sinister Six, originally in the comics, the classic version of the Sinister Six is Doc Ock, Electro, Kraven the Hunter, Mysterio, Sandman, and the Vulture. So that was the original incarnation. But over the years, there's been dozens of variations on the Sinister Six. There's been more than 6. They forgot how to count. There's more. So it's just a collection of all Spider-Man villains put together. Now, I don't know what they're going to go with in the movie. And I don't want to talk about the movie too much because I've seen it and I've reviewed it and it's on site. And I think we'll wait to speak about the film in more detail in a few weeks. But what's already out there from the trailer is that you see Doc Ock's tentacles in the trailer, and you also see Vulture's wings. And we know that the Rhino exists. So I don't know whether the Rhino might get maybe subbed into one of the Sinister Six.
Yeah, sure.
But do you want to talk about them a bit more? Do you want to hear from Avi and Matt?
Let's hear from Avi and Matt.
When you translate comic to film, The word classic means the first 50 issues.
Yeah.
Because after that, we all made changes. So the reincarnations of the villains, if we did Electro, classically, you know, the green stuff, and the colors had nothing to do with anything, had to do what was available in the bullpen. Like if we had
the paint,
you know, if we had a lot of orange, they were orange. Green was a big color, must have been cheap. So when you look at them, we need to bring them into the credible science of today.
There's no such thing as just a villain. You know, there are villains by virtue of choices that people make, but they always begin as humans, as characters, as flawed people, as tragic people. You know, there are great movies have been made about guys, a bunch of bad guys who get together to do something.
Seven Samurai.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge tradition of it. Those are sometimes the greatest characters to watch.
So what Avi's saying is the notion of a classic Sinister Six refers to the first 50 issues of any comic book run. After that, you know, comic book creators like just started making up things again. So he says that what they'll do with the Sinister Six is pick the best 6 villains they can think of, rather than maybe be slavish to what was considered the classic lineup, which makes sense.
Yeah.
You've got to cherry pick and find the best villains. No, but what I want to talk to you about is how successful do you think a film can be, a superhero film? Like, we've seen so many superhero films, we're kind of conditioned to the conventions and the tropes now. How successful do you think a film could be like that could almost be a little bit parodic? Like, it could invert the structure of a superhero film. What do you think they can do with that?
Well, my hope is that a film like this, if they nail it, can be a huge success, because so many of these superhero films that we've watched and liked, the villain has been more interesting than the hero. Even some of the best ones the last few years, like The Dark Knight or X-Men First Class. I would have happily spent the whole movie watching Magneto going around Nazi hunting and you know, watching his descent into darkness at the same time. But so I'm really intrigued by the idea of a film from this point of view.
Yeah, because that's what Avi and Matt said. They say about Spider-Man has a really strong rogues gallery, and we've spoke about this on the show a lot of times, that they don't have the rights to any other characters, but they're lucky because the villains in Spider-Man's world are interesting in their own right. And what they were obviously at pains to say in that clip was they're characters in themselves. They aren't just out and out villains. That at some point they had some sense of humanity. They made bad decisions, they lost their way, and then they became quote unquote evil from the perspective of the audience and Spider-Man. But they're talking about making it, maybe not all the villains in the Sinister Six, but maybe one of them or maybe a couple of them somehow seeking redemption.
Yeah.
Now, this leads to a bigger question about movie going in general. Like, I know some people in our office find it hard to sympathise with protagonists when they don't like them. But I never have that problem, because I don't feel like you have to identify with the lead character in the movie to enjoy the movie.
I remember that was a big criticism levelled at Attack the Block, which I had absolutely no problem with, that these kids were essentially arseholes at the start of the film, but by the end of the film they were heroes. I've got no problem with that. I don't know, can it sustain a whole movie? I think maybe that one of the greatest characters in all of superhero moviedom is Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2. If that had been a whole movie just about him, would we have enjoyed it as much? I don't know. It was a great character, a great performance. Do we need that heroic element to make these things palatable, I guess, and have lightness with the dark?
So I wonder what the kind of plot arc will be to it. Like, yes, you might have one character going on a kind of seeking redemption. They want New York to maybe see them more as they can be heroic, but it's very easy for them to lapse into kind of almost black comedy. Yeah, which I'm sure they don't want to go quite there. But at the same time, you know, it's that classic thing about drama or screenplay writing, that you have like an object or an obstacle to overcome, and that creates dramatic tension. Then you need resolution. All these classic script writing techniques. If you don't have, surely the obstacle for the villains will be the hero. They wouldn't be drawn on whether Spider-Man would be in it. So I'm wondering whether they develop some kind of secondary Spider-Man hero like Black Cat or something like that.
Or will one of the villains have to be somewhat heroic?
Or turns against the rest of them.
Yeah. because we've seen that enough times in the
But
movies.
Avi Arad name-checked Unforgiven and also Seven Samurai, like a collection of kind of outlaws coming together to do something. Imagine if like they actually come together, because there are times in the comics where villains will come together and unite and stand side by side with heroes to avert a danger that's bigger than themselves.
I want a hard R-rated version of this, where these just go around killing people.
It's never going to happen. Yeah, that's the only thing about Spider-Man 2 I'll say in this show before we get on to more detailed discussion. I do think with Spider-Man they're pitching it maybe a bit more family-friendly.
Right.
And maybe a bit younger, a bit young adult than maybe Marvel pitches.
Which is fair enough for a character like Spider-Man. I mean, we can have that version. We can have an older one down the line, maybe. But for this Sinister Six, I definitely don't want to see... I mean, I'm joking about the R-rated version, but I don't want to see a family-friendly version of that.
I wonder if this might be a bit more... aiming for a bit more an older audience. And then on the higher end, Venom and maybe a Carnage movie even now is maybe skews a little bit older. So in the Spider-Man universe, you can cater for all sorts.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It'd be interesting to see.
But we want to hear from you as always. So who would you like to be the screen version of the Sinister Six? Who are your favourite candidates? Who do you think should go into that? And maybe actually casting suggestions. We maybe do a casting suggestions for the Sinister Six themselves.
And look out for these Avi Arad interviews on the site, because I think you've got a lot of good stuff.
Got a lot of news that's going to be rolling out over the next week. Send your suggestions to IGN_UK feedback@IGN.com.
Unforgettable.
Yeah, unforgettable.
Email address.
Absolutely unforgettable.
Let's do some mailbag. I think you've got the first piece, haven't you?
Yeah, first piece is Elliot Mason. So last week we talked about David S. Goyer saving Green Lantern and what to do with the kind of DC universe. Because a lot of people write and saying all we ever talk about is Marvel, and obviously we've done that this week. But there's a lot more Marvel stuff in production than DC stuff. That's kind of why we're doing it. But Elliot says he thinks it's long since past time for DC to set up their own dedicated movie studio and assign Bruce Timm or some other Kevin Feige type figure to help lead the charge and oversee the entire DC cinematic universe. There is just too much politics within Warner Brothers that are holding back the studio from really embracing their DC characters. Hence the constant focus on Batman and Superman. I really like the fact that DC's movies have a more serious tone to differentiate them from Marvel's more light-hearted fare, but Man of Steel took it a step too far and forgot to have fun along the way. And so Elliot actually really coolly has suggested a kind of 5-year slate for DC Universe. So Warner Brothers take that. So 2016, Batman vs Superman in the summer, Flash in the fall. Year after, go straight into the Justice League with Wonder Woman in the fall, and then over the next few years, Batman reboot, so standalone Affleck, Green Lantern reboot, Man of Steel 3, Aquaman, and then you're going into more sequel territory for the individual characters.
Interesting. I hadn't even thought...
It's got a roadmap, Elliot.
I hadn't even thought about Batman getting a standalone... Ben Affleck getting a standalone
But it
Batman
actually
movie.
makes total sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's intriguing. Do you like this setup? I think that's quite an intriguing little...
You know what? It's probably going to go along those lines.
Yeah.
If. Here's the big if. If it's successful. No, we haven't heard about The Flash, but if it's successful.
If Batman vs Superman works.
But I don't know. I just worry about... we're talking 3-4 years' time. There's going to be a lot of Marvel films, a lot of Spider-Man films, a lot of X-Men movies out before this even gets up and running. And I just worry they might be a bit late to the party.
But I think he's right in what he says about us having someone to oversee the whole thing. I mean, we kind of thought Christopher Nolan might step into that role.
Yeah, but I think he's got other projects.
He wants to make films, doesn't he? But it would be an idea to have someone overseeing all these projects to sort of slowly see them merge one day in the way that I believe Mark Miller's supposed to be doing at Fox with Fantastic Four and X-Men.
For a while, but So have you got the next bit?
I do. It's from James Cleverly, who says, in regards to your comments on Green Lantern getting a second try, I honestly think that if DC do it, they should utilise the wider Green Lantern Corps. And with Guardians of the Galaxy creating a sci-fi team of heroes, it would make sense to have a team of lanterns protecting not just Earth, but the universe from a major threat. I think I would quite agree with that, really.
Yeah, I think that's a nice counterpoint to the Guardians, and expands the DC universe in a slightly different way.
Yeah. We had a lot of feedback last week about if a Green Lantern did get rebooted, having Jon Stewart be the main character, which I think
that's
makes sense.
I think that's the easy way to do it, because you kind of sidestep the whole kind of Ryan Reynolds thing. It's kind of a neat way to reboot it. But I like the idea of it being an ensemble piece. Yeah. It takes the strain off any one actor to carry it.
Yeah, and it's a way of keeping Ryan Reynolds involved if they wanted to go that direction, just making part of a team.
I'm sure he'd love to be involved. So, as always, feedback at IGN_UK, feedback at IGN.com, or on Twitter. What are you?
At Tilly Tweets.
At Krupa. So, little plug for the Twitter handles there.
Follow this guy and that guy. That's about it, isn't it, for this week?
I think so, yeah. I'm spent.
Yeah, I think next week we'll be returning with a bit of a Spider-Man special, I reckon.
Yeah, full on Spider-Man.
So look out for that, and thanks for watching, and keep it on IGN for all your superhero needs.